It's the discussion we have to have. I keep coming back to, we can do whatever you want. We can absolutely do whatever you want. You want 6 days a week, you want all the post offices open, we can do it. But someone's got to pay for it, right? When the Postal Service split in 1971, they actually put something in place that they called the Postal Service cost.
Welcome back to Freedom Forge. If you believe in truth, accountability, and standing up for the values that built strong nations, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel, because here we speak plainly, we question everything, and we hold power accountable. Today, we are reacting to a Senate hearing that dives deep into the future of the United States Postal Service and, more importantly, exposes a fundamental issue with how government operates when it's weighed down by mandates, restrictions, and political decisions. This hearing focuses on whether the USPS can even survive without congressional intervention and what it really costs to maintain nationwide service, especially in rural America.
Gentleman from Georgia is now recognized, Mr. Jack.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank the Postmaster General for testifying before us. Another LSU graduate. It seems like you guys are taking over the United States Congress. But
I never thought I'd get the chance to say "Go Tigers" in front of Congress.
But I wanted to just first, thank you for your service and ask, broadly speaking, as one of the last questioners today. You outlined in your opening testimony the challenges you face as Postmaster General. Is there a version of USPS's future that does not require some form of congressional intervention in the coming years? And if so, what would that look like?
I don't think there is. I've done tons of strategic plans across a number of businesses, and I've never had a strategic plan where they say, so many options are not available to you, right? You have losing routes, can't cut them. You have losing post offices, can't cut them. You have retirement benefits that only earn T-bill rates, you can't invest it in stocks. There's just so many strings. I tell people that this is like Gulliver's Travels. Gulliver was the giant in the land of the small, and one small person could not take him down, but they put so many strings on him that they were able to hold down the giant Gulliver. And that's what's happening here. It's not one string, it's the accumulation of all the strings. I think David spoke about them. It's the discussion we have to have. I keep coming back to, we can do whatever you want. We can absolutely do whatever you want. You want 6 days a week, you want all the post offices open, we can do it. But someone's got to pay for it, right? When the Postal Service split in 1971, they actually put something in place that they called the Postal Service cost. And they said, we understand that it's going to cost a lot of money for you to serve rural communities, so we're going to pay you for that. And that number then was $460 million. If you translate that to today's dollars, that's anywhere from $13 to $20 billion. So Congress in 1971 understood that they're going to have to pay for taking care of all the rural places that lose money and the routes that lose money. They totally understood it. I would say that either we reduce the mandates that we have upon us on delivery days, all the different things that I've talked about in my remarks, or we acknowledge that there is a cost to back what they called then the public service cost. There is a cost to that Congress is going to fund. To me, it's 6 of one, half a dozen another. We can do it either way, but recognize that all the mandates that we have cost money, and that money precludes us. The business model precludes us from being profitable, and so either we have to get it through ratepayers paying it, or through an appropriation from Congress. We can do it either way, and glad to have those conversations.
Well, thank you for that. I've got 2 local issues in my district I want to highlight. I know we've been working diligently with your team. I'm curious, and if it necessitates further commentary or correspondence after this hearing, I welcome that. But in Tyrone, Georgia, Fayette County, my home county, there was a post office that burned down in March 2023, well before your time. I want to congratulate you. And in recent months, you were able to reopen at least the post office box elements of that facility, but retail is still not operable. Curious what y'all's protocols are if you have a natural disaster that affects the post office, and can we work together to try to reopen the retail as quickly as possible?
Yeah, we'll certainly follow up with you on that.
And lastly, Thomaston, Georgia, also my district, you mentioned rural. This is interesting. I think it does affect some more rural post offices that were built before the 1960s, before ADA came into effect. And we do have a lot of reports, and I want to commend the postal employees there. They're trying to help folks that are in need of getting upstairs that don't have ramps. They're trying to help them get into the post office. But we just hear recurring problems there. Because the facility was built in the 1930s, I should say, there hasn't been a lot of, legal requirements for them to update their facilities. Curious what y'all do with some of those more rural post offices that don't have the ADA requirements, but still service people that have ADA.
Yeah,
needs.
again, we have to go back to that trade-off. Don't know the specific details, but we'll get back to you on it. But, it is interesting that you say that. When you talk about them helping people to get into the post office, for every time we have someone that didn't get their birthday card on time, we have that great employee that gives that unbelievable customer service. It really is the face of the Postal Service. That's what we can bring back if we figure out this business model. That's what we can bring back, I think, everywhere, is that unbelievable customer service that your folks experience when they go out of their way to go out and help them into a post office where it might be hard to get into it.
I appreciate you working with us on both of those. Mr. Chairman, I may have some questions to submit for the record hereafter, but I deeply appreciate you convening this hearing. It's a very, very important hearing, and it's a big deal for us to be part of it, so thank you.
Thank you very much. We will look forward to not only getting your questions, but also hearing back from them, and thank you very much.
Now let's get into what's really going on here, because this hearing reveals something bigger than just mail delivery. It reveals how government systems are structured in a way that almost guarantees inefficiency. Right from the start, the question is simple but powerful. Can the Postal Service function in the future without Congress stepping in? And the answer we hear is blunt: no, not under the current system. That alone should get your attention. Think about that. A massive federal operation, one that's supposed to serve the entire country, openly admitting that it cannot sustain itself without ongoing intervention. That's not a temporary problem. That's a structural failure. And then comes one of the most revealing analogies in the entire hearing. The Postmaster General compares the Postal Service to a giant tied down by countless strings. Not one big restriction, but dozens of small ones. Rules about delivery days, requirements to keep unprofitable routes open, limitations on how money can be invested, restrictions on closing post offices. This is what happens when government tries to control every variable. You don't get efficiency. You get paralysis. Now here's where it gets real. The Postal Service is required to serve rural communities, many of which are not profitable. And let's be clear, that's not a bad thing. A nation should take care of all its citizens, not just the ones in profitable areas. But the key question is, who pays for that? Back in 1971, Congress understood this. They created what was called a public service cost, essentially acknowledging that serving rural America would require funding. And adjusted for today, that cost could be anywhere between $13 billion and $20 billion. But here's the issue. Today, we're trying to pretend that the Postal Service can operate like a business while also forcing it to act like a public utility. You can't have it both ways. Either you let it operate freely and make business decisions, or you accept that it's a service and fund it accordingly. This middle ground we're stuck in, that's where the problems are. And this is where I'm going to give you the honest, no-nonsense take. As a patriot, I believe in strong institutions. I believe in services that bind a country together. But I also believe in accountability and realism. If you're going to require 6-day delivery, keep every rural post office open, and maintain nationwide access regardless of cost, then you need to be honest with the American people and say, this will cost money. Real money. What you cannot do is impose all these mandates and then act surprised when the system isn't profitable. That's not leadership. That's denial. The hearing also touches on real-world issues. Post offices damaged by disasters, outdated facilities that don't meet accessibility standards, and the everyday struggles of rural communities trying to access basic services. These are not abstract problems. These are real people dealing with real consequences. And to their credit, postal workers are often going above and beyond. helping people into buildings that aren't properly equipped, delivering service even when the system around them is failing. That tells you something important. The problem isn't the workers. It's the structure they're forced to operate in. And that brings us back to the bigger picture. This hearing is not just about the Postal Service. It's about how government policies shape outcomes. It's about what happens when you pile on regulations without considering the cost. It's about whether we're willing to make hard choices or continue pretending that everything can be done without trade-offs. Because there are always trade-offs. You want universal service? It costs money. You want efficiency? You need flexibility. You want both. Then you need smart policy, not political messaging. Right now, what we're seeing is a system caught in between, unable to operate like a business, but not fully supported like a public service. And that's why it's struggling. So when you watch this hearing, don't just see it as another government discussion. See it as a case study in how policy decisions impact real outcomes. See it as a warning about what happens when systems are overregulated and underfunded at the same time. If you believe in honest conversations, responsible governance, and putting the country first, then you're exactly where you need to be. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to Freedom Forge, and stay tuned, because we're going to keep breaking down the issues that matter and telling the truth without apology.